This is episode 4 of Founder 64. And this episode's founder is 32, born in England, and he now owns a booming bakery on the Sunshine Coast, which he started from his humble, probably small garage in 2020, when COVID basically kicked off. It is Sunshine Coast Sourdough Co. founder Greg Turner. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Hey, how you going?
How many podcasts have you been on?
Number 1.
This one.
Yeah.
So the best podcast you've been on so far is this one.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
I'm like, please tell me yes. Like, I've been on this podcast for 2 minutes and I hate it.
Yeah.
One of the things I know about your bakery is that you always sell out of bread. And like, you're still selling out. It's not like people, it's like they were like, I'm infatuated with your bread for a bit, and now they're like, I've moved on. So why is your bread always selling out? And like, what it is about your sourdough?
Yeah, I mean, I think creating a business where there's zero waste or as close to zero waste is something that I hold close to my heart. And I think that's our goal, to sort of sell out, in the last hour or so, rather than, have loads of bread that's going to waste or going to landfill or whatever. So always goes to a good home. That's important to me. But just really good sourdough. I mean, I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
I truly believe that our sourdough has sort of got its own unique style, certainly here on the coast. And I think the customers seem to enjoy it too, which is awesome. Is
there like a type of sourdough that always sells out the fastest? Like if I were to line up, or are we all chanting for the same piece of sourdough? Or what is the most sold out?
Yeah,
or fastest selling?
I mean, it would be our signature sourdough. So it's sort of a classic, my take on a classic country sourdough, which, there's many sort of versions of a country sourdough,
right.
But in simple, it's essentially 20% wholemeal and 80% white, give or take. So it's sort of not quite a white loaf, but it's close to it, but it's got lots of flavour. So our one actually has 4 different flours in it. So.
So just because I'm kind of keen to like dig into like who you are, like what makes you tick, like are you just a sourdough like fanatic, or so can we rewind like all the way back to like England?
Yeah.
Like where were you born? Like what was your like childhood like?
Yeah.
And were you always like, did you come out of the womb being like, I want sourdough now?
No, not quite. It's a passion and interest I developed in my later life. When I was younger, I grew up cooking in the kitchen with Mum. She taught me everything about cooking that I know. I've loved it. Very, very passionate about it, and that kind of developed into cooking sourdough later on in life. I actually started sourdough in about 2017, so it was quite not that long ago, really.
But back to like you're 10 years old, your mum's teaching you how to like cook stuff. Are you like? I remember you once told me that like your kitchen was like the heart of your home.
Yeah.
Is that like, where did that come from? Was it like your great granddad who's like, he bought the first family oven or something? Like, have you always been like, is your family been obsessed with cooking, or?
Yeah, or mum in particular has always loved cooking. I mean, her mum, my gammy, as we call her, my grandmother, she cooked and mum cooked with her, so I think it's something that's just passed down the generations. Mum actually ran a business called Thermomix in the UK, which is a well-known food processor, and they sold that in the UK, and Mum wrote cookbooks for that. So she's written about 5 or 6 different cookbooks, and I helped with that, and worked in the family business for about 10 years, and that sort of, largely how Mum's passion for food continued to grow, and obviously developed into writing books.
Did you feel any like, were you inspired, or did you feel pressured because your mum's like successful, and she's writing books, she's got this business, and you're like, man, I should probably do something?
No, I mean, it was inspiration for me. I mean, if you ask my wife, I come home after doing a 12-hour day in the bakery, and I spend 2 hours cooking dinner. So it's just something I love so much.
Oh, we got it right. I was like, hang on, are we doing this because you love it, or your wife's like, all right, and now your shift doesn't stop?
Yeah,
like, okay.
No, it's definitely from a place of love.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to double check.
Yeah.
Can you remember the first time you made sourdough? Like, I know you said you kind of got into it in 2017, but was there like a first time? Because it's kind of hard to make.
Yeah, it's an interesting story actually. So my wife actually worked in hotels back in the UK, and she became good friends with the baker at that hotel. She'd kind of branched out and did her own thing and set up her own little bakery. And at the time, I was sort of learning from websites and recipes online how to bake, and got wind that Harriet, Laura's friend, was a baker, and I actually went and spent an evening with her at her bakery. It was a tiny little space, maybe even smaller than our last bakery, so like 25, 30 square meters, like tiny.
Like a walk-in wardrobe.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And
very intimate.
So I spent 5 or 6 hours with her, sort of learning from her how she did it. I'd done a little bit of playing around myself.
So it sounds like, but was there something that like kick-started your interest? Because it seems no one like wakes up and goes, I want to learn how to make sourdough from this person for 6 hours. That seems like a...
Yeah, so it actually it partly came from my auntie as well in Canada. So she's made sourdough for years and had a mother or a sourdough starter, as you call it. So she does sourdough breads, and just sort of talking with her and I think just that's where the interest sparked, and I just, it's an incredibly rewarding process as well. It's unique in that respect because it takes a long time. There's a lot of steps and a lot of love sort of goes into it. I mean, anyone who's baked sourdough at home would know that it's very tricky. So when you get it right, it smells good, it tastes good, and it's super satisfying. So
it's so interesting to be like. It does feel like sourdough is one of those like items in baking that's like. It really is. There's like a kind of like an art to it. There's like a journey that you go on rather than just being like, I made muffins.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems completely different.
Well,
like this is like, your family's in it, your auntie's into it, and
Yeah. Well, I think as well, because it's a wild, like culture or naturally occurring bacteria that makes sourdough. No two loaves are the same. It's not like your cookie cutter white bread that you get from the supermarket that's all identical. It's all, every loaf is unique, and truly is. And that I think that's what makes it exciting and all the more interesting as well.
So it's kind of like in your family, like your aunties, like sourdough, then you developed a passion for it. You had like this training that you went through, but then 2017 you thought, I'm going to really lean into it.
Yeah.
Is that like, was there any like reason behind that? Was it like a trend on TikTok or like what's going on?
Yeah, to be honest, it truly was just personal interest in it, in the process, and I'm sort of apart from that sort of little bit of help and guidance I got from Harriet early on, like I'm self-taught, so I've really just trial and error over the years at home, baking bread. When I started baking sourdough in Australia, which would have been, well, when I moved here in 2018, I carried on sort of just, baking, and I'd bake 2-3 loaves, one for myself, and I'd give away a couple to friends and family. And it was sort of, it would have been late 2019, early 2020, like you said, when it was one of Laura's family friends said, hey, you should start selling your sourdough, like it's so good. So 2 loaves became 6 loaves, and then before I knew it, I was baking 10 loaves. It took me about 12 hours to bake just a few loaves in my oven at home. Like I think I was literally baking like 6 loaves of sourdough. It would take me nearly 8 hours to get through.
What was the price there? Were you selling them for like $100 each? Like how was
funnily enough, the same price as what I do now. So
this sourdough took me a lot of time, but here it is for $10 or whatever your prices are right now.
Yeah.
So, because I always thought one of the biggest or most interesting parts of your story is like this picture of you like making sourdough in your garage at the start of COVID, and then you went out and you delivered it to all your friends. So can you walk me through like the early stages of what that looked like?
Yeah. So I mean, I take a step back because when I haven't really told the story, but when I moved to Australia, my dream was actually to open a coffee shop. So alongside of the sourdough, I've got a huge passion for coffee. So I wanted to do that. So I got a job working as a barista. And that developed into sort of a management role, managing a few cafes. And then I found myself with actually working for Tim Adams, who is a well-known coffee roaster on the coast as well, and learned how to roast coffee with him. So it was at this time that I was actually baking the sourdough at home. So I'd basically finish my full-time job, come home on a Wednesday or Tuesday evening, get home, start about 4 p.m, mixing up dough, and then I'd basically be putting the dough in the fridge at like midnight, going to bed, waking up at about 5:30 in the morning, baking the bread. I'd then go deliver it to friends and family and whatever, the little collection of customers I built up.
Yeah.
And then go do the full-time job.
Were you exhausted?
That same day. Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I was.
Was there a moment where you're like, "What am I doing?
Yeah.
This is manic. I have this like obsession." How many customers did you have at the start? Like you got like a little, Oz Post.
Yeah, well, I had a Facebook Messenger chat. That was basically how I did it, and then friends of friends would say, "Hey, can you invite so and so to the group chat?" So I used to bake Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah.
So same as what we did in the old bakery on Cayley Drive, and so I basically did that every Tuesday and Friday evening. I prep my bread and then bake it the following morning, and it was the point at which I just was totally exhausted. Laura said to me, my wife Laura, she said, "Right, Greg, you've either got to, give up the coffee roasting and do the sourdough full time, or you basically got to give one up and focus on one."
Oh no, she's giving you like an ultimatum.
Yeah. But it was in my head as well because I was just tired, and we had a young kids at the time, Kai, our son, and then also Xavier later on when we opened the bakery.
She's like, "It's the coffee, the sourdough, or the sun." Yeah, and you're like, well,
well, now it's a nice combination of all three. So but yeah, so and that it just grew from there, and then an opportunity came up. Actually, another baker doing a similar thing to me, a guy called Rupert. He had a little sort of bakery tucked away on Cayley Drive, and he was moving back to Europe, and he basically reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested in sort of taking on my equipment and adopting my customer base?" And then that's how the next step kind of happened. It was at that time when I was kind of making that decision what I want to do.
Oh, so you get a phone call out of the blue?
Yeah, so it was uncanny, the coincidence of it. But I got to know Rupert. He'd been doing it for 12 to 18 months. And he basically just said, "Look, do you want to sort of, jump in where I left off? And it just worked so well. Like I made sourdough pizza bases, I made cinnamon scrolls, made my sourdough breads. Like we were doing almost this identical thing. It was crazy how convenient it was. So I kind of stepped in and brought my own take on this. Like I did my own sourdough, but a couple of his recipes I kept too, and but yeah, that's how it all started.
It sounds like this weird little like aligning of, he's like, I'm going to leave. Also, I'm kind of like a doppelganger of what you're doing. And you're like, this is like a seamless transition where you're like, I can just move into this.
Yeah.
Were there any like? It sounds like a smooth transition, but what were your biggest challenges at the start? Because you had to learn to be an owner of a bakery.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Oh, it was the first. I mean, anyone who's run a business would know that the first 12 months is hard graft. Yeah. But also, doing something I love made it possible, I guess. But yeah, it was just me, myself, and I at the start. I didn't have any staff. I was in there, grinding away 5 days a week, going from my full-time job to now having to provide for the family, like with this, new responsibility.
Did you feel any I don't know, were there any stresses or pressure to be like, this has to work?
Oh.
Otherwise, I got a wife and a kid, and, and it's it's just you in this micro bakery. You're like, what was running through your mind? Did you feel the pressure to be like, this has to work?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, hugely. And that was probably the biggest challenge to mentally to cope with. But I think just seeing the customers' reactions when they come through the doors and when they eat the product and the feedback that we get, like that's what makes it all worthwhile. All the hard graft and that's probably for me. Like, I mean, my dad was massive on customer service, so he taught me to look after the customers. And for me, that's equally, if not more important than the product we're producing. Because if you can look after every customer that walks through the door, whether they have a good experience, maybe they have a bad experience for some reason, that these things happen, but there's always an opportunity to have that customer walk out the door happy, in the way that you handle them or look after them.
Sure.
So for me, I'm hugely passionate about that. And I think, I hope to think that that's also what makes us stand out a little bit, is that, our level of care for the customers and just producing a great product and looking after them as well,
What's how important is the experience of customers walking in? And because I know you've always talked about how like people kind of get like a thrill at like seeing you whip up some sourdough as they come in.
Yeah.
Can you talk me through like how important that is and like why you feel like that's backed some of your success?
Yeah. I think the old space was very unique. It was like 30 square meters, like I said, and we had one stainless steel bench top in the middle of the bakery. All our shelves, our ingredients stacked up. Like you basically walked into a little prep kitchen. So the bench that we prepped the dough on the day before then became the display bench. We would have product displayed. We put a sausage roll heater on the counter. It was real rustic, and it was at the back of a mechanic's yard as well. So it was unique and quirky.
Did you feel like a performer? Like people were coming in, you're like, oh, it was like spinning dough in your hand. Like, did you have to learn any tricks?
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, it was. I just did. Was just doing what I love at the end of the day. Yeah.
Like I know that like you're passionate about sourdough, but you're also like you're thinking about your business. Is it profitable? But were there early signs of success, like with your micro bakery, where you're like, we made like, $20K this month, or like, did you have any of those big months that you were like, okay, this definitely works?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was great at the start because I didn't have to pay any staff because it was just me, so the profit margin was up here. But it was gradual, but it was very successful, and it's just grown organically as well, and just through word of mouth as well. So it's yeah.
I know you kind of already touched on like why your sourdough is popular, but is there like a new trend where people are like interested in sourdough, and like what's behind that?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think actually since COVID, there was a huge, a lot of people cooking sourdough at home. People had all this time on their hands, like start to finish. It's a 6-hour process in terms of the actual prep part. So I think people found themselves, getting interested in it because they had all this spare time. And I think nowadays more and more people are aware of what they're putting into their bodies in terms of food and, products, what they put on the skin, anything. So there's a big push, I think, from the general public, and people are more aware nowadays, and they just want to know what's in their food. And our sourdough has flour, water, and salt in it. It's three ingredients. That is literally it. That's becoming very popular, and even a lot of the supermarkets, the sourdough it's not actually sourdough.
Right.
You have a look at the ingredients list, and it might have 6 to 10 different ingredients in it, and one of them might be yeast as well. So it's there's people are keen to have good real food is a term often used. They want quality and locally sourced stuff.
So if people see like the health benefits behind sourdough, and then you've got, you're offering your sourdough, but it does seem like you've got these big giants like Coles being like, we're going to offer sourdough, and then you've got like local bakeries like I think of like Rick's on 6 or the Wonky Loaf. Do you see them as like competition, and like how do you see them as competition, and how do you sort of keep up and compete?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've always had the attitude of just the more people doing similar things to what I'm doing, the better. Like the guys down at Rick's, I've actually went in there and made a conscious effort to say hello and introduce myself.
Oh, nice.
I've briefly spoken to the lady at Wonky Loaf once before, and I think if we can all support each other, that for me is the best attitude. Like I've never felt threatened or would ever want to threaten someone else's business. That's just my morals as a person, and that's I guess my kind of take on that.
So you've kind of like nailed the sourdough scene. Everyone understands that you're a sourdough king, whatever. But now that you've got your cafe and you're like adopting, I guess you're entering like the coffee world.
Yeah.
Have there been any challenges on that? Because there are some high quality cafes around here. And I feel like the standard's really high. Do you feel, what have been some of the challenges entering that? Or do you feel kind of confident that you can sort of hold your own?
Yeah, I mean, coffee to me is, something I'm confident with and I love. But also you've got to find people to make your coffee. You know, I can jump in the machine. I know I'm happy to make a good coffee, but I've got to make sure the staff can do that too. And all the guys here do an awesome job. And because I roasted coffee for 2 years, so it's something that I'm very sort of familiar with and knowledgeable about, and I learned a huge amount working at the roastery, and also with my previous boss, working at the cafes as well. It's coffee's a challenging thing because it changes, and it's season to season, it's different, and there's many quirks and differences, with bread and coffee. So flowers change, seasonally, and coffees change seasonally. So it's, they're always throwing a challenge at you, so to speak.
I feel like one way of like looking at your like story is you can be like, wow, he's done, he's like, he worked from his garage, he has like a good work ethic, and he kind of had this great moment where he had an option to like take over a micro bakery, and now you've got this cafe, and it's like you could look at it and just be like, he's just had such a good streak, and this is really good. You're like, it's not like that. I'm curious, like, what's been like your biggest challenge, or like, have you had like a dark day where you're like, things have got, my lowest point was this day, or like what has been your biggest challenge? Because I know running a business isn't like.
Yeah. As a person, I don't like to focus on the negative. But No, I know. And I have a very positive sort of outlook on stuff. But I think for me personally, the most challenging part were those early days in the bakery by myself. I'm a very social person. I love to be around people. And I was doing like 15, 16-hour days in there on my own, like 5 days a week. So for me, as a business owner, I found that challenging. Hayley, actually, who was my first employee, she came on board, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Just having someone to chat to at the bakery. I know it sounds crazy, but something as simple as that, that was awesome. And she's now managing our bakery. She does an incredible job, and I've basically taught her. In terms of bakery side of things, I've taught her everything she knows. I taught her how to make sourdough. We learned how to make croissants together. She's been along for the journey and seen it, from the ground up, really. Special thank you to her.
Do you feel like maybe people underestimate like the struggle, and like I've heard that entrepreneur, like the road of like an entrepreneur can be quite lonely and hard. Did you feel like that was the case in the early days when you're in the bakery by yourself and you're like, I've been here for 15 hours? Like,
it's challenging. Probably the biggest thing is also prioritizing time for your family as well. When you own a business or run a business, it's so easy to become consumed by it and momentarily forget about them. Not because you don't care, but it's just you're so busy. So that's my biggest challenge, and probably my biggest piece of, I guess, friendly advice to anyone looking at starting a business is make sure you prioritize your family and time for them. It's challenging, but they're your support network as well. So you've got to be there for them and do your best to kind of keep everyone happy and that's challenging.
What do you reckon you're like? What's the most rewarding part about running Sourdough Co for you?
That's a tough one. What is the most rewarding part? I think probably the look on my customers' faces and the feedback I get from them. For me, that just it fills my bucket. You know, getting feedback. That bread was so amazing. Comments like that. It's just really, really rewarding, and that's what makes all that hard work pay off. So that, 100%. That's customer feedback.
Okay,
Absolutely,
so people, because I think some people always go, "Oh, you're in business, and like you're just here to squeeze a profit," and like, it's not like a financially driven venture.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because I kind of haven't, I know obviously I talked about the love for sourdough, but for me, I got into this for a sort of, I guess, somewhat a lifestyle. Like when I moved to Australia, I wanted to change. I worked in an office for 10 years with mum and dad. I loved the job, but I wanted to do something very different and be more customer facing. A lot of people say, "Oh, you should open a wholesale business," and maybe I will one day. But I love
the customers.
I love that interaction. I love it when customers come in, building relationships with people, and that's something I loved when I was working as a barista as well. That customer interaction, relationships.
Do you feel like are there any challenges with scaling a business like this? Because to make sourdough bread, it's quite a long process. So do you feel like there are any what limitations do you have when you're like trying to scale?
Space is a huge thing. Finding enough space is hard because all our bread goes in the fridge overnight. So you've got to have space to store that, cold storage. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. What
do you do during like Christmas time and when people are like, we want hot cross buns? Like, do you come out here with eskies, or like do you have to like rent fridges off your friends?
You can rent cold rooms. We probably will have to do that. But it's funny, like we even 2-3 weeks into this new space, I sort of thought to myself, oh geez, have we given us enough space to grow here? Because it's it feels like we could almost do with more space already, and it's only coming into week 8 now.
Yeah.
So never underestimate the space you'll need to do a bakery essentially. So.
Looking at the future, do you have like your finger on the pulse on like innovation in sourdough? Like, are there any trends that you're spotting in the sourdough world that you're like excited about adopting or jumping on?
I think for me, we do a weekly special, so there's always a different sourdough, something a little bit out of the ordinary. That you can get, like an olive or a walnut and cranberry, or so for me, testing and doing developing new recipes, whether it be sourdough, pastry, that's something that excites me and something I'd like to do more of as well nowadays.
Okay, but you haven't like, when some people go overseas, they go to France or they go to America and they're like, oh, I've seen some crazy things that people are doing with sourdough. You haven't seen any like offshore trends that you're like, I'm going to bring that back here? I get inspiration from everywhere. I couldn't pinpoint one particular thing, but like a lot of my research is done online. I do a lot of reading. There's a guy called Chad Robertson who ran Tartine. He's a really inspirational baker, and he's forever pushing the boundaries and learning. I'd love to travel the world and learn more about sourdough and go visit some of these people and you can write that off as like a business expense.
Definitely.
I'm sure the ATO would be happy with that. Like, I had to go to Hawaii. There's a sourdough baker there. I had to learn a few things. I know you've just expanded into this little space here, but again, looking at the future, you've already touched on like, man, is this place big enough? Do you feel like this is the final evolution of Sourdough Co, or how else do you plan on expanding?
It definitely not the final point for us. I mean, I thrive off. I like being challenged. So once I kind of exhaust one challenge, I want to move on to the next. So that might look like opening another retail bakery on the coast here. potentially a wholesale arm as well. So there's lots of opportunity. And
do you feel like you're like quietly ambitious? Are you sort of like sitting there thinking, all right, I'm going to expand, I'm going to hit the Noosa market, or I'm going to go down to Byron Bay? Like how, do you have like a 5-10 year plan of like, this is what Sourdough Co is going to look like in 5-10 years?
It's a tricky. I probably should have a 10-year plan. I'll be honest, I don't.
Well,
it's I just love coming in here every day and doing what I love, and that was, my goal wasn't to build some empire when I got into, my goal was to just do something I love and share my passion for coffee and sourdough with the customers. So for me, that is the most important thing. I
want to play a game because people might look at, you might think of yourself as like, I know sourdough. I'm probably better than the average Joe. So I want to put it to the test. And last night, I tried my hand at making some sourdough.
Okay.
And I was thinking, the whole time I was like, what's a bit I could, give him a run for his money? I've never made sourdough before. I try to make sourdough. I want to get you to close your eyes. I want to give you a piece of your sourdough and a piece of my sourdough.
Yeah.
And I just want you to walk me through the steps and just try and guess which one's yours.
Mm-hmm.
It should be the tastier one.
Yeah.
But
who knows? Yours might taste good too.
Yeah,
all right, I'll close my eyes.
You close your eyes. I'm just going to give you, if you put out your hand, I want to give you some sourdough.
Yep.
And just tell me, you can just take a little bit.
Can I touch it and feel it?
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking I know the answer already, but just from how it feels. Sorry, I'm ruining the game here.
Hey, just take it.
Okay.
Take a bite. Is that good?
Bready? Might be the way I describe that.
Not sourdough. Is there any part of you that goes, that's sourdough?
No.
Okay. You can put it, there's a little...
All right.
Yeah, nice. I'm going to give you another one.
Oh, a little bit dry.
Well, hey, try not to insult your own sourdough.
Did you really make it?
Okay, here's the second piece of sourdough.
Okay.
How does that one seem?
Yeah. That's okay.
Okay, so which is your sourdough? The first one or the second one?
Can I open my eyes?
Yeah.
Oh. Second?
Second's yours? Okay, what gave it away?
It was just how it felt.
Really?
Yeah.
What about the taste, though?
Taste as well. Yeah, so there's a sour flavour there, like quite a prominent sour flavour.
Yeah. Did my bread taste anything like sourdough?
Maybe a supermarket bought sourdough.
It was a mix.
Hey?
It was a pre-mix.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just you can just tell by the way it feels in your mouth and.
So you can tell instantly. You're like, this is average sourdough. What do you reckon the biggest...
Have you tried it?
I haven't tried yours.
No, try it.
Oh,
try it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
It's interestingly, as you chew it, initially you don't get that sour flavour up front, but you'll find as you continue to chew it, that sour flavour actually comes through later on.
Yeah, I'll be driving home being like, oh, God.
Yeah.
There's a lemon in my mouth.
But it's a pleasant sour.
Yeah,
you know?
no, it is.
It's not a,
No, it's
but
like...
you can make bread that tastes, too sour. But yeah, so it's, just the, I mean, actually I could feel the lightness of it. Like our bread doesn't have that sort of, fluffy white bread or, fluffy white light bread feeling to it. There's more like substance to it. It's a bit more chewy and it's light, but it's light and chewy at the same time. It's kind of hard to describe, really.
What do you reckon the biggest mistake people make when they're making sourdough at home?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's
the whole thing.
Yeah. There's so many variables, like your ingredients, your temperature, the temperature of your water, temperature of your flour, what flour you're using, that's before you've even mixed the product together. Like it's yeah. So like temperature, how much sourdough starter you use. There's so many variables in it.
I would have hated and loved to have seen you watch me make sourdough last night. I had to find a warm place to put it because I was reading the instructions. It goes, hunt down a warm place, and so I put it in my garage. Yeah, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty warm. And I had like a tea towel over it. Then I went back 40 minutes later, as per the instructions, and then I took off the towel, and there was a cockroach in the sourdough. And I was like, oh, what is this?
And you just fed it to me.
Well, that would if you thought it was crunchy, it was actually the cockroach.
Yeah, but it's.
What do you reckon? Okay, if there's just for sourdough lovers, or for people who are wanting to jump into the sourdough world, make their first sourdough, what's three pieces of advice you'd give them?
Well, the first bit I would do is I would jump on a website called The Perfect Loaf. I'm not getting paid any dividends for this, but...
Is this your website?
No, it's not. I learnt to make sourdough from Maruzio, the guy's name is. I learnt to make sourdough from his website. And it's, he's got a great sort of basic, sourdough recipe, and he also tells you how to maintain a sourdough starter. So... Okay. That's something you just got to go through and have a read, because it's not a whip it up process. It took me 2, maybe 3 years before I was getting consistent results making sourdough at home. I mean, that was only baking a loaf every once a month, once every 3-4 weeks. But it's quite the process.
It's hard earned.
Yeah.
You don't just it's not, you can't have like a natural talent for sourdough.
No, you've got to put in the time and
Okay, so the first one.
Yeah, so have a read on theperfectloaf.com.
Yeah. The other two?
The other two is find yourself some good flour. You can buy it from us. We sell flour at the bakery. But yeah, get some good flour. I personally like organic flour because I just know that it's not got any nasties in it. The amount of chemical that farmers spray on crops nowadays is frightening. So for me, that's important. And what would be the third? Get yourself a nice crockery bowl and a little plastic dough scraper, and then
fun. It looks nice
for making the dough with.
Yeah, okay. I thought maybe you were thinking
like a nice sort of pottery sort of dish, a big pottery dish, to kind of proof the dough in while you're mixing it. And buy yourself a little banneton as well, a little wicker or rattan banneton, which is basically what the dough sits in.
Can't you just squirt lemon in there to make it sour, or is that not? Why
it would be nice if it was that easy.
Why can't you just do that?
Yeah, no, it's time. Yeah. It's a labour of love.
Okay. Yeah. This is the last question, I promise, and no more games. No more games. Last question. What advice would you give a young entrepreneur? They are wanting to kickstart their own bakery. You've already gone through the process. So what advice would you give them? I think make sure it's something you're passionate about and something that you really want to do. It's a lot easier when it is. That was the reason I got into this. I think that applies to any business. Don't do it if you're just doing it, for monetary reasons. I think that's the wrong reason. I think if you can wake up, get out of bed, spring out of bed, be excited to go and do what you're going to do. That, I think, for me, that is my biggest piece of advice: is make sure you love what you're doing. And if you don't, you only live once. Go search with your heart's content until you find something that you love. Like there's something for everyone out there. So that's good. That's it, I think. Yeah. No, I like that. Cool. That's all my questions. But if people want to find you, they want to find you in person, in the flesh, where should they go to? And is there like an online store that they should maybe check out? Yeah,
so we've got a website, sunshinecoastsourdoughco.com.au. So you can actually pre-order all our products online for pickup in store. We also bake lots of product for walk-ins too. Open Wednesday through to Saturday, 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. But yeah, have a look at the shop online. There's all the products we do, lots of information on there. a bit about us, a bit about the story about me, and you know the supplies we use and ingredients and stuff. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Okay.
Glencar Drive as well. 40 Glencar Drive in Budrum. That's where the bakery is.
Don't go to any other bakery. They'll scam you. No, that's not true.
No.
Greg's good.
My attitude would be support all the bakeries on the coast, you know. All the ones you enjoy, and yeah.
Awesome.
Go out there and just support local. Yeah.